Republicans who dared to cut deals with Democrats have long had to fear retribution from conservative activists like Rick Manning, president of Americans for Limited Government. He had railed against a 2015 debt ceiling compromise as absurd, and as recently as March called for President Trump to use the vote to create real reforms to cut spending. But when Trump shocked the nation last week, handing Democrats a major victory by accepting their terms for a clean 3-month suspension of the borrowing limit, Manning says he felt no ill will for the president. Instead, he blamed House Speaker Paul D. Ryan, Republican Wisconsin, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, RKY, for forcing Trump to work with Democrats. He gave them the opportunity to legislate and they failed, so of course he's got to knock over the table, Manning said. He said, now you have to compete for my signature, and in competing you have got to give me what I want. So, yeah, he changed the game. The game has certainly changed. The old rules of GOP politics held that any Republican who stepped out of line to seek compromise with Democrats risked immediate attack for ideological heresy, or worse, squishiness and weakness. But Trump's call for a much stronger coming together with Democrats last week earned him little direct public criticism from Republican lawmakers or activists, who are wary of his power among the base. Instead, party leaders across Washington turned the focus of their ire on the continued dysfunction among Republicans. That line was echoed from the White House, which has sought to cast Trump's embrace of Democrats as an effort to disrupt politics as usual. This is simple. In the real world, progress is measured by how much you produce, not how much you pontificate, said Kellyanne Conway, a senior White House advisor. It turns out the swamp includes some people on Capitol Hill and not just on K Street. At the core of Trump's decision is a calculation that many Republicans, with more traditional ideological goals, ignore at their own peril. The president has never seen himself as a party standard-bearer, but as the leader for a growing share of the electorate furious at the haplessness of the political system. While his prescriptions have tended to be conservative, his disruptive methods are more often the primary selling point, along with his promise to deliver for what he calls the forgotten men and women. His nomination was the hostile takeover of the Republican Party, said Roger Stone, a former longtime political advisor who helped guide Trump's short-lived bid for the 2000 Reform Party nomination. He is a threat to them. He has just demonstrated that he is entirely capable of outflanking and outmaneuvering them. Trump has tied his fortunes to a growth in the share of voters more focused on shaking up the system than in prescribing specific ideas for its replacement. The 2009 Tea Party rebellion in the Republican Party, which began as a demand for less government spending, seamlessly morphed into broad support for Trump's 2016 campaign, despite his promises to resist cuts to government entitlement programs and his disinterest in lowering federal deficits. There is an element of the core base in both the Democratic and Republican Party that is more non-ideological and anti-establishment than any other aspect of their political view, said Josh Holmes, a former chief of staff to McConnell who helped lead the Republican effort to defeat Tea Party challengers in the 2014 elections. Taken to its logical conclusion, that means that they will support anybody regardless of their ideology that is intent on opposing the powers that be? The trend could have significant implications not only for the coming legislative negotiations but for the midterm elections next year. Republican lawmakers are bracing for the possibility that Trump will involve himself in primary elections to challenge incumbent Republican senators in Arizona and Nevada. A special primary election this month in Alabama has demonstrated the popular appeal among voters for candidates who will go to Washington to smash the existing ways. Former state Supreme Court Justice Roy Moore, who is running an iconoclastic campaign against the silk-stocking Washington elitists, has been leading incumbent Senator Luther Strange in most recent polls, about 2 weeks before the runoff. Though Trump has officially endorsed Strange, he has yet to commit to campaigning in Alabama. Meanwhile, Trump's recent tweets criticizing McConnell, "Get back to work," the president demanded, have helped carry Moore's anti-incumbent message. Trump's 2016 campaign pollster, John McLaughlin, who continues to consult with the White House, conducted an online poll for conservative group Slate last month that found 68% of likely Republican voters in 2018 thought it was time to replace McConnell and Ryan in Congress. In a separate question, 49% of all likely voters polled, including